A warm welcome to all our viewers to our series Natural Medicine, where today we want to talk about the issue of empty food. What is empty food? Well, I want to discuss that with a health analyst today. Welcome, dear Peer Zebergs. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being back and enriching us with your knowledge from an analytical point of view. And so, let's get straight to the point. When we speak of empty food or hear the word, what does it mean? Well, if you look at the food industry today and what we can get in the supermarket, not everyone has a vegetable garden at home. You can see that many of these different products come from all over the world. For example, they were harvested when they were not yet ripe and were then on a ship for a few more weeks, or we get some apples from last year. They were still in storage for half a year. It used to be done for maybe 2 months. Who really gets fresh food? And how is this food produced? Incredibly often, we have monocultures with far too much artificial fertilizer. We have factory farming with far too many artificial additives, fattening substances, too much corn, soy, and then we still have a lot of antibiotics in use there. And if you measure the food today that you can buy normally, the vitamin content is perhaps 1/10. The variety of minerals is extremely reduced. Water is exactly the same. In the past, people drank natural spring water or something. This is the most important food of all. Nothing is in there anymore, and the longer vegetables and fruit are stored, the fewer photons are in them. What are photons? Photons are information and energy particles, in particular information particles in electromagnetism. So I get a broadband spectrum of all possible frequencies from the sun. There's also a lot of information, a lot of energy in it. And today you can measure it on fruit. These are the biophotons where Professor Fritz Albert Popp once documented it extensively. Yeah, so there are these photons everywhere. They're emitted, and Dr. Dieter Breuers then developed a device that can be used to measure everything. Today you can measure it, you can say you don't need to eat it anymore, that's just filler. This is just an apple with nothing in it, and here is an apple that has a lot of biophotons in it. These biophotons are actually life energy. This is life energy, the life force that we need. Well, it's not just about defining dead or empty food by lack of minerals and vitamins, but mainly by the fact that life is here. The life force is in the information, and the sun gives us this life force. It would be ideal, but that's of course not feasible for many, to get something out of the vegetable garden. To eat it immediately, that would be ideal. Each day of storage weakens this information energy. And in the end, I only eat molecules or ballast. Do you know where we can get this? Not just from the garden, but if we just have 2 or 3 glasses with sprouts at home, I've got all the biophotons. That's alive, that's food. I think you know the books by Anthony William. Yeah, he talks about it a lot, and I'm a really big fan of sprouts, of that sort of thing. He always says there's pure life energy and pure information from the end product, from the whole tree, from all the bushes, from all the fruit and everything in there. And there are new tendencies. They call themselves micro-vegetables. Then you can buy it in bowls. These are the sprouts, the seedlings. They are so tall, and there's a level of pulp where all the nutrients you need are in, and then they grow. Then you really have the healthiest and best information. And in my opinion, you have to put it in the sun. There's also this hydroponic movement. They look like fridges or wine cabinets. At every level you have such small cultures in there. But what bothers me is that they have artificial light. They say, okay, they have the photon strength of 8, But if you do the same thing in the sun, the photon strength is 40. So the sun is the key point. It has to be from outside and as fresh as possible. And this is, of course, the absolute best thing you can do. And otherwise, I just have to supplement. Then I have to take this and that. But we could really do a lot with sprouts if we included them in everyday life. But again, let's go into the garden. And I have some broccoli. We cut the broccoli. From then on, from that moment, it goes into oxidation, into decay. So it's dead. It's not dead. Is it still alive? What? It's still alive until it gets into your mouth's chewing mechanism. I haven't understood that yet. You're going to have to explain it to me. I've now cut off the broccoli so it's no longer connected. It can no longer grow, it's no longer fed, it gets nothing anymore. The minerals decrease, the vitamins are lost. I wrap it in a foil full of plastic. Yeah, great. I choke it, right? If I put the foil over my head, a bit lives until you chew it. I read that from a very great scientist. I was amazed too. I also thought it couldn't be. If it's cut off, it's dead. No, it's not like that. It's not dead until it gets into the chewing mechanism. And it stays green for a few days. Wait, what does live mean? Does that mean as long as it has biophotons, is it still alive? No, there are cells in there, completely normal cells. Plants have cells, we have cells, there are mitochondria that are still working, and sometimes it grows. For example, you cut off a tulip. Then it grows for a few days, it gets bigger. It's not dead, it's getting longer. You'll then see that the tulip will be 5 to 10 centimetres longer. So it isn't dead the second you cut it off. There are lots of cells. If you were to cut off a leg, the rest would still be alive. Okay, good, I got that. So now we have this broccoli. It goes into decay. Biophotons are lost through the oxygen. Through oxidation. Through the oxidation, and if I wrap it in foil, it doesn't get any better either. Well, I'm not necessarily a fan of plastic. Well, who is? I don't understand that either. When I moved to Spain, the first time we had balloons like this, you could buy 5-litre bottles of water in the glass bottle. That was then completely abolished, and now in Mallorca they use 1.8 million drinking bottles, plastic bottles a day. 1.8 million. What happens to it? Okay, that's less to blame for nanoparticle pollution. More than anything, detergents are responsible for this. And we wash plastic fibres. There's almost nothing left that is pure natural fibre. And these plastic particles form nanoparticles, aren't filtered out anywhere, and they get into the groundwater. That's why 97% of children in Germany are contaminated with nanoparticles, plastic nanoparticles. And then I have plastic softeners, and now let there be a bit of fat in there. Then the plastic softeners basically go into the vegetables. It's much worse in cheese or something, because I have a lot of fats there. They are fat soluble. I get all the cheese packed in some kind of foil. I only buy where it's in paper. Okay, but it also has a plastic coating on the inside, doesn't it? From the newspaper, black. The printer's ink's on it. So, by the way, another interesting aspect. Freezing is better than storing. A few experiments were made, and then vitamin content, mineral content and so on were measured. Freezing fresh vegetables or fruit and eating them afterwards is better than storing them. Definitely. There was a Galileo broadcast yesterday that confirmed that, simply with the only risk note that many berries you get frozen simply come from countries that also work a lot more with substances that we don't necessarily need. But you're right, vitamin content and all is still there in this shock freezing. The process is great, absolutely good. So nowadays we have more and more of this dead food with less and less biophotons in it, less minerals and so on. How do we get it back? No, wait, before I open that loop, let's go into the hexagonal structure. Is it correct what I read, that in every vegetable, every fruit, in every berry, actually a hexagonal structure exists? I have hexagonal structures, yeah. Isn't that incredible? Nature is awesome. It does it especially for us, because that's the healthiest we can take, something with hexagonal structures. Or, for example, the polyphenols, so the secondary plant substances that have the strongest antioxidant antioxidant power. They also have hexagonal water structures, but they also have hexagonal carbon structures with benzene rings inside. And then I have the phenomenon again. These carbon atoms can share electrons. There I have free delocalized electrons. That's why they have such a strong antioxidant effect. Or fullerenes or something like that, or shungite. And these substances also have hexagonal basic structure. Interesting. Well, the hexagonality is the high art of nature. If I remember the quote from Dr. Anders Birker, he told me it's order therapy. If we bring order fields from nature back to our body, then we add this order therapy. I like that very much. I don't know the term. I take it extremely much. I'll remember that. And if you connect the order with hexagonal structures, it's actually absolutely the same thing. It's kind of a reset again. There's harmony again as it should be. But we can't get this water, this hexagonal structure, in fresh fruit. Yeah, but I have to take care of the whole body. And 99% of our molecules in a human body are water molecules. So I have to take care of 99%, not just eat an apple. I have a lot to do to get that done with fruit and vegetables. Well, I can probably do a little better there. If I go out into the sun or use the technologies which we use to make all body fluids hexagonal, but then I have this order again, I have this harmony again. I also have the opportunity that toxins, foreign substances, acidic molecules are eliminated. Then I simply have more energy again, and I can also use the energy that I get from food, which has to get to the destination. I need good water again. If I take normal tap water, it no longer has any oxidation reduction value. On the contrary, it is also not a good means of transport because due to the bipolar nature of the water molecules, 20-25 molecules always stick together. This is called a macrocluster, or it's clumping. They can't really get into the cell anymore because the aquaporins, so the door openings in the cells, are too small. Even if I have good food, I have such bad water, they're not really transported at all. They don't get to their destination. That also means I have to combine it with hexagonal structures, with hexagonal drinking water. Then that which is good will go where it needs to go. Exactly. I want to go back to the empty foods again. And I did an experiment once. Cut an apple in half. Then the oxidation process begins. It starts to turn brown. One side was slowly turning brown and I had irradiated the other side. I transferred electrons to this apple, with the result that after some hours, this apple was nicely brown and that was not. But that also shows once again that it is not dead. Only because you cut it apart. It's still alive. Yeah, only this one less and less. It's damaged. It's getting worse and worse. But basically speaking, plants also consist of cells. And in these cells there are also mitochondria as energy centers. If I keep the energy centers alive, there are also bouquets of flowers if you fill them with hexagonal water and then irradiate them from time to time. They last much, much longer. Now, we always use the word irradiating, and also in my experiment. That's actually going to mean that it would make perfect sense to upgrade my food by just adding electrons. Or making it shine. I can optimize any food with it. I can then destroy it again when I cook it, because the hexagonal structure remains up to 70 degrees Celsius. So ideally, or if I've cooked it, I can use it after cooking when it cools again. I can irradiate your soup again. And also the coffee again afterwards. Then I can get it back into the hexagonal structure. Get the structure and the electrons. Yeah, exactly. Which get broken again by cooking. Exactly. Then the whole structure changes. So when I boil water, the whole structure changes. It wasn't intended in nature either. Can we briefly show this experiment that we have with the device? Now we have here, dear viewers, a tube, a neon tube, that we want to light up now to show you how electron transfer takes place. Electron and energy transfer. I still want to add that. Please, I'll hand it over to you. Maybe you can hold that up a bit so that you can see it better in the camera. And I don't have to touch the fluorescent tube at all. The energy is transmitted wirelessly. So I can wirelessly transmit electrons here. I can transmit electrical energy wirelessly. So now if this tube wasn't a tube, let's just show it, but for example, broccoli, then energy and information would actually go into the broccoli. And when I eat this broccoli, I don't actually have empty food. Then I have an energetically, hexagonally changed food. And when I eat the food, I just get more electrons into my body. I get more electrons, more energy into my body. If a man is a battery, we get electricity. Well, that's exactly right. It's a pretty awesome thing. Like I said, once it's cooked, you might want to do it again afterwards. But it's not that don't eat food that isn't hexagonal now, but it's just this is the holy grail of health and youthfulness. And that's why the people who drink hexagonal water, like in the Hunza Valley, which has been researched for so long, they lived an average of 120 years. Otherwise, it's rather hostile to live up there in the Himalayas. Because they drink it, because I don't have an aging process, or I have super repair processes, and the body's just awesome. It can do everything. There's a great phrase that says, nature is a miracle. Nature doesn't make mistakes. We are part of nature. It just means, and I believe in that, I have to eliminate the handicaps and just support nature. Then I don't have any illnesses. I don't have a high blood pressure, I don't have diabetes, and certainly no cancer. Because when I'm basic, I have a high electrical cell membrane voltage. Then this cell cannot become a cancer cell. Period. Now you've just opened up another point. I did 2 more experiments. I had a white wine that was very acidic, and an orange juice that was incredibly acidic. Then I irradiated these 2 again, with the result that the acid was gone. And then I thought to myself, actually incredibly cool. So that's actually the best example of irradiating a sour white wine. And suddenly this acid is an electron deficiency. You put the electrons in, it was totally harmonious. It can be the case with wine. You can change the taste, that you don't think it's that great anymore. Well, yes, I know that too. I made a very nice Barolo there, but it wasn't that great anymore either. But bad wine becomes really good. Yeah, it is like that. It's becoming much more balanced, much gentler. And I'd say you could also call this a food improver, this Celltuner. But it has so many complex positive effects that you just have to be amazed again and again. I also test everything and I'm always flabbergasted. A wholesale apple, mass production. Does this also have the hexagonal structure? Reduced, very reduced, because it's still in storage. And then you have to be careful, they're often waxed. The wax has to go first. So low in biophotons, and the hexagonal structure is limited, well, reduced. And when there's a piece of meat on the table, sausage or meat, there's still a hexagonality in it, if it is by nature. Of course, but well, let's say, if you see what the animals are getting to eat today, you don't want it. So if I take the word from Birch again, there is such an animal is by far no longer in an orderly attitude, but out. Take a look at factory farming for chicken or turkey. You don't feel like eating that. But if, for example, you have pigs or cows that are out in the pasture all day, they eat the fresh grass, what they usually get, they get no fattening feed, no soy, don't get devil knows what. Most of these products are also genetically modified. This is also information that comes back in. What kind of water do they get to drink? They used to be outside, ideally drank from the creek, and were in the sun. The animals, or many basically no longer, see the sun. And the sun now has a lot of information. In many greenhouses, there is no sun. Where's the information? Where are the biophotons supposed to come from? Electromagnetism is a transmitter of photons of information. That's the sun. I have to get out into the sun. I have to have the things there. And ultimately, there are these foods that also contain energy and are not dead. I can imagine this could probably also be made visible with a so-called Kirlian photograph. You mean astrally? Yeah. I don't know what to think of that. I've only seen pictures like this. Everything has electrical and electromagnetic fields and emits signals. The plants too. Plants communicate with each other when they're next to each other. You know that, especially with the trees, for example. Or water communicates. When a river passes, it communicates with each other. We all know that today. And of course, that's even better the more natural they grew up. But if I no longer have any solar energy, or, for example, trees, if you chop them at a certain point in time, the wood has a completely different quality. They're even so sensitive, lunar-solar oscillations, when there's a moon change or something, they register it. So if you have natural water there, a really good, beautiful tree has a lot of hexagonal water structures in it. And when it's squeezed through the narrowest cells in trees, then the friction on the outside leads to the tree arteries, then leads to the fact that this water becomes hexagonal too. This is also the case with us in the water. If we have microcirculation, and that works well, then I create even more hexagonal water in the body through the narrowness, through the friction on the outer surfaces. Now, I have another question. It used to be common practice that before you ate the food, you also blessed it. I now know that the blessing alone also stimulates the salivary fluid and so on in my body. But there's also a transmission from one's own body into these structures of food. That here, not only information transfer takes place, but also a charge. Well, let me say that every person is an energy field. Let's say the normal electromagnetic field is up to 3.5 meters. The Russians now have technology that it can go up to 20 kilometers away. And there are people who are very energetic. You also know people. There are people who rob you of your energy, that really drain your energy. We all know them. And then they did tests like that for a few healers. There, they had a room and put copper plates there and measured the electrical voltage there. We are always at millivolts, at the cell membrane voltage and such. This healer reached 200 volts, not millivolts, volts on all walls, through their energy dissipation. Did that come from the solar plexus? But many also have such energy possibilities through their hands. So when I hold my hands over it, you already notice there's an electromagnetic field, or when you go near, you can do a lot there. So if you practice that a bit too, we've been given these basic skills by nature. Unfortunately, we forgot a bit. Do you do that with all the food that you eat, that you tend to irradiate and charge them all the time? Beverages, so water in particular, always, occasionally with fruit. I don't eat it every day, but if I need it and have the feeling that I'm not so well or I have to do something now, although of course I make sure I have good fruit. We also have our own vegetable garden. We have a villa and there are lots of vegetables, and we're fortunate in that we actually have this freshness. However, we had to eat zucchini 5 times in a row now. Or the onions from the garden and such. You take them out and then you eat them, and carrots, and that's natural. It's just pure nature and nothing gets there except rain and very good water there at the villa. Of course, that's great. Great. Now, I'd like to thank you very much, dear Peer, for educating us about food, about dead food or empty, and what that means. So, in summary, not only vitamin deficiency and mineral deficiency of food, but also in particular the lack of biophotons or structures of hexagonality, where there are also electrons and energies in it that we absorb naturally when we eat and supply our body with electricity, and thus also give it strength. It also makes total sense for everyone who's not in good health, but is lost in a cascade that they increasingly switch to food that is supplying electrons, like these sprouts or irradiation. Well, I've mentioned it before. In Germany there was a study, Professor Spitz mentioned, that in 60% of old people's homes the elderly suffer from malnutrition. Malnutrition means vitamin deficiency and mineral deficiency. I'd like to make a guess. Of the people who effectively died of corona or with corona or whatever, and that was about 80% from such homes, half of that was probably unnecessary. Yeah, I would have also wished that we had focused much more on strengthening the immune system. I have to strengthen the immune system with all the options available to me. Mitochondria are an important issue because they are the energy supply from the immune system, and I need to get out of stress response mode. I need to be in the alpha state, the calmed, relaxed, creative state of relaxation. Then everything works. And if there's still a bit of energy, I've no problem with a virus either, or with a bacterium, or whatever. Nature knows that. It has the means to counteract it. Rüdiger Dahlke showed me the miracle of Denmark about the Spanish flu, and the only country where the death rate was not increased. Partly because they had switched completely to raw food. I can still remember a lecture by Dr. Birka. He also said, only with natural means, don't suppress fever, promote it. His grandfather saved 100 patients who would otherwise have died with raw food. So autotherapy, that means we have biophotons. We have electrons inside, we have hexagonality. With raw food, you have, of course, good raw food, you have vitamins, minerals, and the biophotons, the energy. Now, we know what is empty and what is rich. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. All the best. See you next time.